recognized overseas as well.
Oh, and Korea also has a lot of music festivals. You can meet musicians of all genres at these events.
Exhibitions happen in Korea all year round.
I also enjoy going to the theatre. There's no shortage of musicals, plays, and performances to choose from. So keep an eye on the theatre scene.
Then there is K-design, blending traditional and modern elements.
K-fashion, leading trends.
K-beauty, which takes beauty to the next level.
K-content, receiving praise the world over. Watch it, experience it, and enjoy it.
drawing more fans from all over the world. Local consumer prices continue to hover at the 2% rate in April. Turning to robots to allow the visually impaired the chance to better indulge in cultural experiences. Like the number of hybrid cars are registered in South Korea has surpassed 2 million USS locally developed Yuri rocket. Arirang.
Government system disruptions continue in South Korea, with many services still offline, following a fire at a key national data center last week. President Lee Jae-myung called for stronger preventative measures against potential hacking and phishing attempts that could exploit outages. A senior North Korean diplomat has addressed the UN General Assembly and insisted that the regime will never give up its nuclear program. This was the first time since 2018 that a high-ranking North Korean official had spoken from the assembly podium. President Lee Jae-myung will sit down for talks with Japan's Prime Minister Ishiba in Busan today. This will be Ishiba's first and the last visit as Prime Minister, as he pledged to step down after less than a year in the role following election losses.
Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. We begin today with government system disruptions in South Korea. Following a fire at the nation's data center last Friday, some key functions such as postal and financial services are back online, but the overall recovery rate still remains at around 13%. Now, the government has been scrambling to restore services, but the recovery is expected to take longer than expected, with authorities now saying it could take about a month. Our Park Hyubin starts us off.
After Friday's fire at the National Information Resources Service in Daejeon, the government is making all-out efforts to bring disrupted services back online. Authorities say public safety and property-related systems remain the top priority. Services such as those issuing resident registration certificates through the gov't.kr portal were brought back online on Monday. Korea Post also said fresh food parcel counters would reopen from Tuesday, following the restoration of postal and financial services ahead of the Chuseok holiday rush. However, South Korea is still grappling with the fallout. As of 8 a.m. Tuesday, only 85 of 647 disrupted government services had been restored, a recovery rate of about 13%.
I got my resident registration and family relationship certificate, but the main reason I came was for a fixed date stamp, and that service still isn't working.
Interior Minister Yoon Ho-jung apologized to the public on Monday, pledging swift alternatives.
The government is focusing all resources on restoring critical services as quickly as possible. However, 96 systems from the destroyed data hall cannot be immediately restarted. So we are transferring them to the Daegu Center's cloud system to secure alternatives as fast as possible.
The Ministry of the Interior and Safety estimates it will take at least 4 weeks to fully restore the 96 systems that were destroyed by the fire, as it relocates the data to its Daegu backup center. Services that provide disaster information, including the National Disaster and Safety Portal, have no alternatives, making user inconvenience unavoidable. Internal government networks like Onnara Cloud, used for daily administrative tasks, were also lost in the blaze, forcing some offices to rely on handwritten documents and worsening on-site confusion. The government also announced plans to disclose the full list and classification of all 647 systems affected by the fire.
We deeply apologize once again to the public. It is expected to take about 2 weeks to prepare the resources and another 2 weeks to set up the systems, but we aim to accelerate the process as much as possible with cooperation from firms already housed at the Daegu Center.
With prolonged disruptions inevitable, authorities are providing relief measures. September property tax payment deadlines have been extended, while fees for issuing resident documents are being waived. Updates on system restoration will be announced through major portals and press releases as service resume. Park Hyubin, Arirang News.
In response, President Lee Jae-myung has ordered all government ministries to inspect their facilities and systems related to public safety and cybersecurity, following the recent fire at the National Information Resources Service data center.
다음 주 국무회의 때까지 각 부처들은 전부 이거는 이런 문제가 있을 걸로 보이지는데 점검했더니 문제가 없다. 또는 이거는 문제가 있다. 아니면 이건 시스템을 보강해야 된다. 이거는 이런 매뉴얼을 보강해야 되겠다. 뭐 문제점이 있는 것들을 최대한 좀 발굴을 해서
At Tuesday's cabinet meeting, the president instructed ministries to submit written reports before next week's meeting so that a comprehensive review can be carried out. He also called for stronger preventative measures against potential hacking and phishing attempts that could exploit outages across online government systems. In other news, a senior North Korean diplomat has said Pyongyang will never give up its nuclear program in a rare address to the United Nations. The comments come as the United States maintains its policy of complete denuclearization of North Korea. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
A senior North Korean diplomat has reaffirmed that Pyongyang will never give up its nuclear weapon, calling it a sacred and untouchable cornerstone of its sovereignty. Vice Foreign Minister Kim Sung-kyung delivered the remarks on Monday at the United Nations General Assembly in New York. It was the first time a high-ranking North Korean official had spoken from the assembly podium since 2018. Kim declared that the nuclear arsenal is enshrined in both North Korea's law and the constitution, describing it as an absolute asset that guarantees survival. He also argued that calls for denuclearization amount to demanding that North Korea surrender its sovereignty and right to exist.
We will never give up nuclear power, which is our state law, national policy, and sovereign power, as well as the right to existence. Under any circumstances, we will never walk away from this position.
The speech came as the U.S. maintains its policy of complete denuclearization of North Korea. Washington has left the door open for talks with the regime, and leader Kim Jong-un has previously signaled conditional openness to dialogue. Still, the vice minister rejected any scenario where the nuclear program would be abandoned. Kim also criticized joint military exercises between the U.S. and South Korea and trilateral drills with Japan, describing them as real war simulations aimed at the North. He framed these activities as justification for Pyongyang's nuclear stance. However, the diplomat also hinted at openness to engagement. He said North Korea is willing to expand cooperation with countries that treat it with respect and pursue friendly relations, regardless of differences in political systems. The speech comes as both Seoul and Washington say they hope to re-engage Pyongyang in talks aimed at reducing tensions and advancing peace on the Korean peninsula. There's also speculation that President Donald Trump could seek to revive direct dialogue with Kim Jong-un during his upcoming visit to South Korea for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit at the end of October. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
North Korea has become one of the three major powers capable of striking the U.S. mainland, according to Seoul's unification minister. Speaking at a press conference in Berlin on Monday, Chung Dong-young said the North's capabilities must be acknowledged, listing it as one of three powers that could target the United States, insinuating that the other two powers are China and Russia. With the possibility of dialogue resuming between the U.S. and North Korea, Chung said North Korea's strategic position has changed since the Singapore summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un took place 7 years ago. He said back then, Pyongyang was dependent on Washington and that the United States may have lost the opportunity to turn the nuclear problem around. Meanwhile, President Lee Jae-myung is set to hold a summit with Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba in the southeastern city of Busan later today. The two leaders are expected to discuss bolstering cooperation on tackling population decline and revitalizing regions outside their respective capitals, as well as on AI and hydrogen energy. Ishiba's return visit to Korea is part of the two countries' so-called shuttle diplomacy, following Lee's trip to Tokyo last month. Ishiba is on a two-day visit to South Korea, which is his first and the last visit as prime minister, as Japan's Liberal Democratic Party is set to elect a new leader this weekend. And also in Busan, the command ship of the U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet, USS Blue Ridge, visited the port city for the first time in more than 5 years. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung was invited to take a look at the ship and hear from its captain of the experience of taking part in recent trilateral drills between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo.
Docked in the port city of Busan is a rare view of a ship, the USS Blue Ridge, the command ship for the U.S. 7th Fleet since 1979. Commissioned in 1970, the ship operates out of its home port at Yokosuka, Japan, overseeing waters around the Korean peninsula as well as parts of the Western Pacific and the Indian Ocean. Flying the first Navy Jack flag, symbolizing the oldest active-duty U.S. Navy ship, this 19,600-ton ship has been fully deployed for her entire life, not once entering American waters other than Guam. A handful of reporters who were invited onto the ship to mark its first visit to Busan in more than 5 years were able to witness the ship bearing the marks of time but still boasting a formidable presence.
I'm currently standing on the helipad of the USS Blue Ridge next to a MH-60 Sierra helicopter used for search and rescue missions. This helicopter actually participated in the recent Freedom Edge exercise.
Through the Freedom Edge training, we strengthened our joint maritime operational skills. The port call also provided an opportunity for enhanced cooperation among our Joint Operations Command teams, further improving our joint operational capabilities.
Calling the ROK-US alliance a phenomenal relationship and cornerstone of both peace and stability in Northeast Asia, the commanding officer underlined that the recent joint exercise was more than just a drill.
These exercises have forged unbreakable ties, and the bonds are a commitment to our allies and other countries to ensure an open and free Indo-Pacific. One of the things that I will never forget during my career is looking behind and seeing the flags waving of both the Republic of Korean Navy and the Japanese with the U.S. flag as well.
USS Blue Ridge is soon to set sail from Busan port, but two navies' willingness to strengthen their joint defense posture can be seen through such visits. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Busan.
Shifting gears, U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have agreed to move forward with the U.S. leader's Gaza peace plan, raising hopes of ending nearly 2 years of war between Hamas and Israel. During a White House press conference on Monday, Trump said that if Hamas accepts the deal, all hostages must be released within 72 hours. The Israeli Prime Minister has already endorsed the plan, but the international community is now watching closely to see whether Hamas will agree. Both Trump and Netanyahu warned of sharp consequences if the militant turns down the proposal. The announcement comes as Trump unveiled his 20-point ceasefire plan, which includes full aid immediately being sent into the Gaza Strip upon agreement. And South Korea is moving ahead with preparations for the fourth launch of its domestically developed Duri rocket in Go-hungun County in the country's southwest. The Korea Aerospace Administration said Tuesday that the launch is scheduled for around 1 a.m. on November 27th, with backup dates running through December 4th. The exact launch time will be confirmed the day before. The wet dress rehearsal, a critical pre-launch test for rockets, was completed earlier this month. The last Duri launch took place in May 2023. An event held to discuss the future of metropolitan cities is taking place this week in Seoul. It's the first time since 2002 that the event has been held in South Korea's capital city, with representatives from around the globe sharing visions for sustainable urban futures. Our Park Junan was there.
The Metropolis 40th Anniversary Seoul Congress 2025 has kicked off in South Korea's capital, with leaders from 70 countries discussing how the world can move toward sustainable cities. Delivering the opening remarks, Seoul Mayor Oh Se-hoon emphasized the South Korean capital's commitment and urged cities to address global challenges, such as the climate crisis and inequality, with people-centered, technology-driven solutions.
Seoul is developing new urban models in areas such as transportation, architecture, and the environment. By learning from and cooperating with each other, cities can create a future that is more sustainable, more embracing, and more human-centered.
A city for people, a city embracing technology, Seoul is showcasing its vision for the future, inviting both its citizens and those from other global cities. At the opening ceremony, Jason Schenker, president of Prestige Economics and chairman of the Futurist Institute, highlighted how Seoul has shown the power of public-private partnerships.
Seoul and Korea offer insights into success. Public-private partnerships have helped this economy. Infrastructure investments are very powerful tools to improving people's life, and innovative social solutions. These can be critical too, like the Stepping Stones program that Seoul has implemented. And then there's futurist thinking, embracing these changes to move forward and win in the future.
The last session of the opening day was the Megacity Dialogue. It featured presentations from leaders of megacities such as Seoul, New York, Tokyo, and Guangzhou, under the theme of embracing cities. On Tuesday, participants will experience the Smart Life Week through exhibition viewing, a market forum, and Smart City Awards ceremony, exploring the concept of an attractive smart city that supports vulnerable groups. On Wednesday, the final day of the three-day event, affiliated members will visit sites to fully experience Seoul's beauty, such as its urban architecture and traditional houses. The tour will also include landmarks such as Cheongdam Bridge and Naksan Park that served as backdrops for the Netflix animated film, K-pop Demon Hunters. Park Junan, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. U.S. President Donald Trump unveiled a plan to put a tariff of 100% on all films produced outside the United States, following an earlier threat in May. Details on when or how the tariffs could be enacted have not been specified. On Monday local time, Trump posted on social media that every movie made outside of the United States will face a 100% import duty, accusing other countries of having stolen America's film business, just like stealing candy from a baby. He singled out California and the state's governor, calling them weak and incompetent in managing the industry. Industry observers raised immediate concerns following the announcement, as films are often co-produced internationally. While the latest tariff threat is not new, with Trump mentioning the idea once in May, the recent announcement carries renewed weight as the administration claims it is actively moving toward implementation. In Europe, Moldova's ruling pro-European party has secured a parliamentary majority in Sunday's elections, reaffirming the country's push toward the European Union. With over 99% of the ballots counted on early Monday, Moldova's Party of Action and Solidarity, led by President Maia Sandu, captured approximately 50% of the vote, winning about 55 out of 101 seats in parliament. That gives the party the rare ability to govern without forming a coalition. The Patriotic Electoral Bloc, a Moscow-leaning alliance, headed by the country's former president, trailed far behind with a little over 24% of the vote and a weaker showing than expected. EU leaders welcomed the result and praised Moldova for the peaceful conduct of the election. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky praised the results, saying that destabilizing activity from Moscow had failed to sway the people. In Madagascar, President Andry Rajoelina said on Monday that he will dissolve the government following days of youth protests. Thousands of young people have been protesting since Thursday, demanding reliable water and electricity amid nationwide frustration over prolonged power outages. Security forces responded with tear gas, and guards cleared barricades made of rocks and telephone poles. According to the United Nations, at least 22 people have been killed and more than 100 injured. Protesters have also called for the resignation of Madagascar's prime minister and president, accusing them of governance failures. Finally, Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny has been officially confirmed as the headliner for the Super Bowl 60 halftime show set for February 8, 2026 in Santa Clara, California. The NFL announced the three-time Grammy-winning artist will perform at the event during halftime of Sunday Night Football. Bunny said in a statement that the moment goes beyond myself. He also dedicated the performance to his people, culture, and history. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
It's getting quite chilly in the mornings and evenings now, but afternoon temperatures will continue to top around 25 degrees Celsius during the day, making it feel a little warm. So do dress accordingly for a large temperature swing. Skies will be fairly clear with some showers. However, there could be passing rain in central areas in Gyeongsang-Pukto province with less than 5 millimeters in the forecast. And this afternoon, top temperatures will rise to similar levels to yesterday. Seoul, Daejeon, Gwangju will be getting up to 25 degrees. Daegu, Gyeongju, Jeju will be warmer at 26 degrees. October starts on a sunny note, but the long Chuseok holiday starts with rain in southern regions and east of Gangwon-do province. Meanwhile, the temperature difference will remain significant in inland areas for the time being, so please do dress in layers.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.